Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dimes with Dara on the Joy Slot podcast, brought to you by irishsportsdaily.com. I am Greg Flammang, and that is Dara Mabrey. Notre Dame falls in Paris, France, 100-71 to South Carolina, who looked every bit like a not even a top 6 team, like top 2 team, and they ain't 2. I mean, they looked really good today. So they're going to be a force in women's college basketball in 2023, 2024. A lot of things went wrong for Notre Dame today, and some things that you mentioned in the preview show. You got to deal with them inside. It's like the number one thing that has to happen. It didn't happen for Notre Dame, but we're going to talk about all that. Some of the things that you saw, some of the things that you feel like can get cleaned up in the future, and some things that might be a glaring problem going forward. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. This is our first live show. I'm very excited to be a part of it, and we're excited to kind of kick off the season. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more happier moments as the season goes forward, but this is our first show. We're very excited to be a part of it, so thank you for being here. If this is your first time watching us here and you want to catch more of the content, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell so you know whenever it is we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below, as always. It's going to be on the Hit and Hustle feed until we build a nice little following on this show. We're very excited about that. So once we build up the show, get its own feed, and we'll do it the proper way. We do want to thank one of our sponsors. The first one is going to be, who should I do this time? Let's see. Once I pull it up, there we go. Let's do ESQ Clothing. They have created the world's first bamboo dress shirt, crafted from high quality bamboo fabric. It's the softest and most comfortable shirt you'll ever put on. Not only more sustainable than cotton, but also feels cooler, has stretch, is odor and wrinkle resistant. It's even machine washable. You've seen ESQ's one-piece collar bamboo dress shirt on all of Notre Dame's top players and coaches, and it's the perfect shirt for heading for today's business meeting or heading for a night out. Use ISD 15 and get 15% off all online items. That's ISD 15 for 15% off. Dara, I've seen the text messages. We won't share them. We won't share them on this stream. But what are your emotions in this moment?
There's a lot of emotions. I think if you want to start off on a positive note, you're going to learn a lot from this game. They figured out individual weaknesses. They figured out team weaknesses at different points of the game. Obviously, a disappointing loss, to say the least. It ended 100-71. But South Carolina came out ready to play, and Notre Dame also came out ready to play. And then once the game started to settle in, I think we saw a lot of things come about that didn't really change much regarding Notre Dame not being able to chip away or show any signs of being able to get back in it. South Carolina has really good guards, really good post players. They came out ready to play. So did Notre Dame. So the beginning of the game was very exciting. We learned a lot throughout the game. Not the outcome that we wanted, not the outcome that the Irish fans want, but it is the first game of the season. And I'm still very excited to see what this team does this year.
Yeah, so you pointed out the first quarter, and both teams come out ready to go. So both teams shot 9 of 18, 50% from the field. And look, it was it looked good initially, right? Hannah Hidalgo came out there on fire. She started out 4 of 6 in the game. Maddie Westbeld was playing very well in the first quarter. 7 points for her, 5 points for Sony. I think it was a little bit red flaggy in that only 3 Notre Dame players scored in that first quarter, right? So obviously you wonder about sustainability of that, and that kind of showed itself throughout the game where 50% in the first quarter. Notre Dame shot 26 or 27% in the second quarter. 20% in the third, and then I think it was a little bit better in the fourth, 35%. But that's not going to win you a bunch of games. And we talked about just how important it was to win inside. I mean, Notre Dame didn't get out rebounded that badly, right? 47-44. I think you probably would have taken that if you knew that going into the game, if it was going to be 47-44 on the boards. I think I think we would have taken that, right? Just given that, like, South Carolina has such a good rebounding team, such size in their front line there. That's obviously going to, if you kind of play them to a stalemate, that's going to work out. Points in the paint, though, Dara. It was 70-22. So you get outscored by 48 points in the paint. So many of those were layups. Just killing Notre Dame inside. There was one play where, Maddie was fronting on Camila Caruso or Cardoso, excuse me, and she's like under the basket, and she's fronting, and she's not even really in a good position. They were able to throw it over the top and have her lay it in the basket. And when I saw that happen, I thought, man, like that's really not something that you can allow, regardless of the side situation. So I guess as you were watching, and this is going to be a problem for Notre Dame. They're not a huge team. This is going to be a problem for them throughout the season. How do you prevent, the entries into the post the way that South Carolina was able to be so successful there? You had texted me about pressuring the ball, and so not allowing that entry pass. But what are some of the things that Notre Dame can do in the future to kind of prevent that situation from happening?
Yeah, so let's start with that one. You just said ball pressure. Right. If the guards or whoever it is that's on the ball are being disruptive, it's not going to be easy. Like, remember, the post player down there has 3 seconds. So if you're pressuring the ball and the guard has to alter what she's doing, that post player might have to step in and then come back out, and then by that time you might be a late shot clock. Like, if you can't get it within 3 seconds, it's going to somebody else. They have a ton of scorers, so I think ball pressure would help. And I think if they denied some of those passes, you study their plays, you study their scouts. If you deny some of those passes, that it's the pass into Cardoso, I think that's a lot easier. Maybe denying the high post a little bit more, denying the guards on the wing so that they have to alter what they're doing to not get her the ball. Toughen up down low at some point. Like, maybe you could foul her super hard, like if you're running out of options. But at some point, it's like you got to do something else to really buckle down and not let her get the ball. And whether it's push her out with your legs, release, and then come back around. But like, at that point, it was just so easy. The ball is going over your head, and that's lack of ball pressure, and that's lack of post defense down low. So you can be really, really talented in the post spot, but you have to compete night in and night out, especially against a player like her and a South Carolina offense that's so dominant in getting the ball inside. So I think ball pressure and just buckling down better down low. Just got to try a little bit harder once she catches, because you're kind of doomed once it gets down there.
Yeah, it was just it proved to be too much in the game. So they get outscored 24-8 in the second quarter, 26-16 in the third quarter. So you're losing 50-34 in those middle quarters there, and they just got overwhelmed. The game did feature, Hannah Hidalgo. She did some amazing things. I do want to talk to you in a second about her usage, but just like her mentality out there. You talked about it. Neil Ivey talked to me about it. She is a dog. Like, she absolutely has that mentality. Like, she is a killer, and she wants the smoke. And her and Full Willie were going after it. Like on Full Willie's kind of highlight play, right? She gets right in Hannah's face, and then Hannah comes down, and I think she hit a shot a couple possessions after that, and the shot that she hit right before halftime, like she was trying to get herself fired up. She's trying to get the team fired up. So just on that front, that was great to see. You got Kevin Durant. You got Kevin Durant out there tweeting about both of them.
Magic Johnson too,
which is awesome. Yeah, Magic Johnson's talking about Phil Willie, and that's great. That's great for the women's game, just period. But so much they got from South Carolina got from Pau pitches in with 14, Cardoso with 20, Johnson with 11, Full Willie in 17 points in 26 minutes, Fagan with 12 points in 14 minutes. So they got so many contributions from so many different players. And I want to talk to you about, I want to ask you about, how Notre Dame gets more players involved. Like Natalia Marshall, she did well in the fourth quarter, but before that, it was pretty non-existent for Notre Dame, other than Hidalgo, Sony, and Westbeld. What do you attribute that to, in terms of just like, is it a this game problem? Is it a first game problem? Where did you see that kind of manifesting itself?
I mean, for this game, you could kind of say any problem was a first game problem, but like if
For
you
sure.
really want to break it down, I think it's more awareness. And
Okay.
one of the biggest, I know you included Sonia in there because I think she finished with 12, but those 12 were not Sonia Citron 12. I think she needed to be more involved. She needed to get more shots. There was a lot of block to block action for Sonia, and the ball's not being thrown inside enough to her. So they ran a lot of set plays where a post player would go set a block to block screen for Sonia to just curl around, and the passer was not hitting her enough. And that's where Sonia is going to excel. She has a size advantage against the South Carolina guards, and I think that they needed to include her more in transition too. So I think that's awareness. Hannah was absolutely spectacular. High volume of shots, which I'm totally okay with. But I think that's going to come with experience. Just when I put that together with Sonia, like she'll know over probably a couple games, like, hey, Sonia needs a shot at this point, or someone needs to get a touch here and there. So like I just said, awareness. I think AD, Anna DeWolf, with her veteran experience, could have gotten involved a little bit more. But I know she was in and out with the rotation. I was happy to see Emma fire some threes. That was awesome, just for a freshman to go out there on that stage with confidence. Like, that was huge. But yeah, it all comes down to awareness. And once they put it together, like there's new pieces, there's a new point guard. Once they put it together, I'm super confident. But you could just kind of tell, like, everyone's adjusting. Some people might have new roles. But at some point, someone's got to step up and say, okay, here, someone so-and-so needs this on the offensive end. Here's what we need on the defensive end, which we can talk about in a different section. But as for offense, I think lack of awareness definitely came into play.
To that point, I mean, so Hannah has a 44% usage percentage. Sony at 22%. Do you feel like, because I was kind of thinking during the game, like, would it be a good idea to have Sony bring the ball and to handle the ball a little bit more, and kind of have her set up the offense, initiate the offense? Would that have been a good way to get her more involved? So, like, when you say get her more involved, like, let me ask you this: do you feel like 22% usage is enough for Sony in any game?
No.
No. So how do you think, like, when you're watching it, you're sitting there watching, like, this is what I feel like Notre Dame needs to do. Like, what were some of your ideas on how if you were out there, like, how would you have said, you know what, like, not enough Sony, we need to get her more involved in this game?
I would have threw it when she was open in the post. And this is just me being totally transparent. If that was me and someone wasn't making the pass, someone wasn't making the correct play within the set, like, I would put myself as the passer. I would say, okay, go over there. I'm going to make the pass inside. Or I go up to Sonia and say, hey, do you want something run for you? What do you want run for you where you think you're going to get an easier shot? But that comes with time and chemistry and experience. Like, that's, I think, a big part of what you're not going to know in the first game. But like I said, like in the beginning of this pod, like, you're going to learn so much from this experience as a team and individually. But yeah, throw it to her. And they missed her a few times in transition. That's where I think Olivia, like, would have capitalized off those plays. And I'm not speaking about one person individual, but like a couple of them missed her a few times, and even for an easy layup or for that extra pass to hit a three. So I think that's where she could have been utilized a little bit more. But I think also, like, Sonia's growing into a really big leadership role, and she's gonna voice more, and she's gonna set more examples. Like, even if it's it might not be her the next game that they're missing a couple times. They could be missing Kylie, and someone needs to come in and say, okay, we've missed Kylie a couple times. Like, we're running sets for her. Like, we have to get her the ball. You have to adjust. I feel like when you're on the court, it's a one possession game the whole time, and you have to make adjustments. So like South Carolina wasn't adjusting to that, though, because it didn't become a problem because they didn't hit her in the post enough. So I think that comes with time, experience, and more chemistry, which, I mean, when your head coach is Neil Ivy, I think those things are going to be cleaned up.
A couple questions from Daniel Masood. Thank you for the contributions here, Daniel. These are great. I'll put them up there. Don't worry. Dara's first live show. Yeah, Dara's first live show.
And stop asking why I'm in a garage. If you guys want to know why I'm in a damn garage, it's because I have a fire alarm that needs a battery exchange, but my knee's not stable enough yet to climb up on that ladder. So there you go. I just felt like I had to put my
Dara. Someone volunteer in South Bend. There has to be someone who can get on. I tell you what, Dara, I will be there in 2 weeks. If it is not fixed in 2 weeks, I will give you a new I'll give you a new battery for your fire. And I am also in a garage, so I don't see why that's a huge problem.
Don't hate. I'm not up there yet with you. I don't have any photos or anything.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I think the ambiance is perfect. I think it's great. Daniel's got questions. He has so many questions. With how South Carolina started the third quarter and Maddie Kiley being unable to defend Cardoso, why didn't Nat get in the game? So were you thinking it's time for Nat to get in the game?
Yeah, I think you could put Nat in there. At that point, yeah, I would go with another option. I would put another post player in there, but I think the team overall didn't play her the right way on the offensive and the defensive end. They were I wrote this in my notes. They were just letting her get to her sweet spot. They were letting her catch the ball at the corner of the basket, and they were shooting the ball into her hands. And not just one person did that, but yeah, I could understand why you want Nat to get in there. She showed a spark when she went in today, so credit Nat. And yeah, I would like to see her in them more. I can't tell you why though she didn't get in the game, because I'm not the coaches. I don't know. I wasn't there. Right. So that's the best I could answer that, Daniel. I hope that helps.
No, you're good. And another question from Daniel is how much did the injury situation hurt? Obviously lives out. No KK Bransford, which was a surprise. No Becky Obima, also was a surprise. We highlighted her in the exhibition game, what she did, especially defensively, what she was able to do inside, and no Jenna as well. So how much do you think that mattered in a game like this, especially when the bench points were heavily lopsided in favor of South Carolina? So how much do you think that, so 41 bench points to 12 for South Carolina, and that, how much do you think that made a big deal? Of all those players who missed out, how much do you think would have made a kind of a bigger difference in this game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I definitely agree. Obviously it hurt them. Even though KK's just a sophomore, she has the IQ of a senior, so she's really smart. She's experienced and she's calm under pressure. I think KK would have helped a lot in that second quarter when things started to not go Notre Dame's way. And obviously, when you have Olivia Miles on the court, the game is impacted from top to bottom. I think some of those transition attempts that they missed Sonia on, or where they missed each other a couple times, I think Liv probably would have gotten those. So I think the transition game would have been different, and maybe pace at times. I think when we started to get startled, I think Olivia would have been the calming factor, calm us down. And like I said before, know who to hit, when to hit them, who's hot, that kind of thing, who needs to touch the ball. I think injury definitely hurt us there. Yeah, that's what I got for injury.
All right, I'm going to ask you a question, and then I'm going to deal with this bloody nose that I have right now.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's very dry out here, so it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Anna DeWolf, because I feel like it just looks to me like she's trying to find her way out there, and it's not really. She just doesn't have a good feel for where she's going to get her shots from and how that's all going to work out for her on a possession to possession basis. So if you could talk about, because Daniel asked a question about her as well. So if you could talk about that for just 1 second, I'm going to turn this off, deal with my notes, but I'm not leaving. I'll be right back. Okay.
Handle your business. Okay, Daniel, you're just coming with all the good questions today. Yeah, as for this one, I think she looked a little timid at times. So I think what Greg said, maybe trying to find her role on a new team, a much bigger stage than where she came from, with all due respect, obviously. And I think at times, she came off 1-2, was going into that pull up, and I thought she was open. I thought she should have taken at least, I think I saw like 2 or 3 of them. So that might be the case, which is okay. It's the first game. Obviously, we wouldn't have liked for that to happen against South Carolina, and given the weight that this game holds. But I think I'd like to see more from her on the offensive end. And then what else does your question have here? She's a 5th year who shoots the 3. I feel like against a team like South Carolina, you got to try to stretch the floor. Yeah, of course. And that's what South Carolina did to us. They wanted to go inside and out. They stretched the floor, and they added shooters to their roster, with already great post play and great rebounding. So that was tough. But yeah, I think we'll see a lot more from her coming up. Hopefully, it's one game. She's trying to get it under her belt, find herself a little bit more, but I'm really confident that she's going to step up. She started the game with great intensity. She got that stop and got everybody fired up. So that's that senior leadership you're going to see from her there. But yeah, I would agree. Got to try to stretch the floor a little bit more and make it difficult on them, and try to make Cardoso come out and guard some more people, even if that means swinging the ball around and getting Anna a 3. Perfect timing.
I was sensing it. I'm hustling to make it happen. That's why I have a show called Hit and Hustle. Let's talk about defensively now, because you kind of alluded to it a second ago. Obviously, transition defense was a big problem in this game for Notre Dame, and I felt like Anna. There were a couple times, and Anna and Hannah both kind of did this, where Hannah is very she's trying to jump passes a lot, and Anna was doing that as well. And it led to a couple of steals, but the majority of the time they would jump a lane, they would miss, and then South Carolina's off to the races. And it's just like when you're struggling in transition like that,
yeah,
it's like, look, if you're going to jump it, you got to be right and you got to get it, because if not, you're really compromising your defense. Like there was a play where I think it was they were on a big run. I want to say Notre Dame was down. What was it, 12 at the time? I want to say, or 10. Hannah got a steal, went in and got a layup, and they came down and they threw the outlet pass. Anna jumped it, missed it, and they went right back down. I think this is when Full Wiley did her little whirling dervish there inside. And so that really that it's just like you just kind of wasted that steal. You try to get some momentum back. They were on a big run. It was like you can't just give it back. Like you can't go tit for tat on transition layups like that.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that was one. What were some things that you saw defensively on that end where you thought, man, like they really got to clean this up?
Well, some of those transition points that South Carolina got, maybe half of them were off of our turnover. So that started on the offensive end.
Right.
When you turn the ball over against a team like South Carolina, it's going to turn into points. And that's exactly what we saw. The Full Wiley scored over 3 of us. Like that just absolutely cannot happen. And credit to her, that was one of the best moves I've ever seen in basketball, men and women. That was unbelievable. But yeah, you can't turn the ball over and then expect them not to capitalize off of it, because they're going to. And then you have to use your strength to your advantage. And I'm saying that when you go and gamble for steals against a team like South Carolina, if you're going to go for it, you better get it. That's exactly what it is, because when you don't, it's the same thing as transition. It's going to be an easy bucket. And they got a couple layups off of, someone gambles and then it causes rotation. And then you're closing out against a South Carolina guard that's really quick and athletic. And that's that's like, it's layups to them at that point.
Yeah.
Pull-ups, layups, whatever it is, they're going to capitalize off of it. So I think that, yeah, if you're going to gamble, you better go get the steal because you're going to pay the price. And then when you force the ball out, obviously you got to be ready. So they wanted to limit Cardoso, and then when it goes down to Cardoso, you have to scramble out, but you have to be ready for that. And that just comes with, like, when I think in the beginning of the game they were doing it great. Everything was being done properly. But I think once you hit fatigue, a wall of fatigue, you have to stick to the scout and you have to stick to your principles even when you get tired.
Some good questions by Blue Eyes Italy 46, I think is what it's going to say. I'm going to do the second one first. How do you think Dara Prosper is best used? She has a lot of athleticism, but tends to only hang by the 3-point line, and that's not her strong suit, according to Blue Eyes Italy 46. Do you agree with that? And what do you think about Prosper? How do you think they should best utilize her?
Yes, I do agree with that. She has improved her 3-point shot. I know her percentages might not say that today, but she's improved a lot from the 3-point line. But yes, that is not her first option. And I'm a shooter, so I think I could say that. That's not her first option. She is very athletic. She's a good slasher. She's really good when she goes in for O boards, and she has a height advantage against smaller guards. So I think getting post-ups for her, and she's super athletic, so maybe some handoffs where she can just drive it straight to the rim using her athleticism to her advantage. And in transition, look for her in transition, because she's running her butt off, and she's taken 4 steps and she's already at the rim from the other end of the 94 feet. So that just reverts back to her athleticism. So yeah, I'd like to see some more post-ups from her and maybe some handoffs so she can get all the way downhill and hit her in transition a couple more times. But you're going to see some more 3-point shooting from her this year because she has improved her 3-point shot.
What do you the pros and cons of Kylie versus Nat? Like Nat came and she had a good fourth quarter. And so, we call it, garbage time or whatever you might consider it.
She played great, though, even when she came in.
Nat,
she came in
talking about Nat.
Yeah, made some impacts right away.
Okay. What's the import of starting Kylie over her in that sense?
I think Kylie had the starting spot like last year, so I mean, this is a tough question because you're saying, like, you're comparing Kylie and Nat, but Kylie did have the starting spot last year and she has it again this year. I don't make coaches' decisions. I know Nat also battled some health issues her whole career. So that might have factored in leading up to now, which I'm not positive on because I'm not on the team anymore. But I think Kylie's dominant. She's persistent. Nat, and then you take Nat, for example, Nat does shoot the free throw jumper better. But at that point in the South Carolina game, nothing was working.
Right.
Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but at that point, it didn't matter who was in the game. And Notre Dame proved that,
Yeah. I feel like Kylie is fine with the starters because Maddie is also moving out and she can shoot from distance. She made a couple shots in the first quarter there where she was at the elbow or a little beyond the elbow. She made a 3-pointer. So she was moving out, right? So I thought if offense is the concern, like, you do need punch off the bench. You do, right? And I think that's an important thing. And it's kind of like in basketball, it's like, yeah, you have to bring a different energy off the bench than when like someone like Maddie comes out of the game, and then you bring Nat in, and then she's going to come in and provide kind of what Maddie does. So I kind of like the juxtaposition there. It's like a sixth person, to come in and be that player. So I don't have a particular problem there with the starting lineup as it is. I think that my view of the starters, just watching them, is like, it was a tough matchup for Kylie, period. So like her size deficiency is just going to be exacerbated by the opponent. And the other part too is like, they, in my opinion, you might consider a move if Anna isn't going to be a scorer. Like, I feel like you need to have 4 scorers out there, and if Anna's not, then you might need to make that move later. In my opinion, it's less of a Kylie problem. It's just like, hey, one of you needs to be an offensive threat, and if it's not Anna, then it might need to be Nat, bringing her off the bench and have her move into that starting role. I personally don't like it. Like, personally, I think Anna needs to be a player who's like, hey, when Hannah is dealing, you got to be ready to catch and shoot, and you got to be. There was one play where I don't remember who kicked it out to her, but they kicked it out to her. She did triple threat and drove and passed. And I thought, man, if you're not taking this shot, like, you have to be ready to take that shot, because you're not penetrating, you're not playmaking. Like, that needs to be a shot that you're taking. That was kind of my view of it. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I thought she definitely should have been more aggressive, and I said that before, I think, when you were fixing your issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the history of Notre Dame women's basketball, I'm not sure that a move like that, starting Nat and Kylie, just given the 2 types of players that they are, they're both
Right.
centers, who can also play the 4 at times, but I don't think we've done that before, and we also didn't have, obviously, in the most respectful way, Jess Shepard and Bree Turner. I don't think that those 2 are Jess Shepard and Bree Turner. So in a situation like that, I would not start the both of them. That's going to lead to matchup trouble while guarding other teams, because Kylie doesn't play the back of the zone. And this, you guys might not understand this answer, but I'm trying to break it down as simple as I can. Matchup issues regarding, okay, say they put Nat and Kylie out there at the same time, like, one of them is going to be at a disadvantage somehow, because one of them is going to have to guard somebody quicker, and then one might have to guard somebody bigger. So I would not start the 2 of them at the same time. That's just my opinion on that. And then, yeah, as for AD, when you need more senior leadership, I feel like that's not just AD too. And I know Maddie did play well, and she showed good spurts, but there has to be more leadership all around. And, like, I was the leader of that team last year, and I could pretty easily recognize that they need more leadership.
In what way? Like, when you say you recognize that, like, where is it? Where did you notice, like, they need it in this area specifically?
Someone has to know and tell, like I said before, someone has to know and voice who might need the ball, who's been missed a couple times, who might have a disadvantage on defense, like as a matchup. There might be a small guarding a big, there might be someone who's a step slow guarding the fastest player, that kind of thing. And then when things are getting really bad, so it started at the end of the second quarter and things got worse and worse and worse, there needs to be someone that does something to stop the bleeding. And when I say stop the bleeding, it doesn't mean that you guys are just going to go on a 12-0 run, because that's not realistic. I mean, it could happen, but, like, when I say stop the bleeding, it doesn't mean, okay, let's do this and then let's go score. You stop the bleeding by regrouping and communicating and holding people accountable. And it got worse and worse and worse, and there was no spurts of anything like really positive happening. So then that's what I think, okay, at some point, yes, Niele is the coach and there's a whole coaching staff sitting on the sideline, but at some point you have to realize that you 5 are out there. Niele's not out there to hold your hand. She's not out there to spoon feed you. She can only tell you what to do. And it's a matter of stepping up, I always use this term, but being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's going to have to happen when you have new pieces, you have your point guard that's hurt, and you hit a little adversity early on, given you just lost by 30.
Yeah. So there's do you think that Niele's trying to grow that? Because you had pointed out, like, they had gone on a run, and you were like, you texted me timeout, like, call a timeout, and she didn't. And I think it ended up working out in the moment. but there were also some times where she kind of just let them go a little bit, and runs grew on runs. And I think there is also from a coaching standpoint, like you do have to keep it. Like I can't call a timeout every time they score a couple baskets.
At that point, you would have ran out.
Right, like that's what I mean. Like you
quarter.
can't just keep calling timeouts all the time. Like at some point, we got to string together some stops. But do you feel like, hey, early in the year, like first game of the season, like, hey, let's let them try to figure this out a little bit more than maybe you normally would, like later in the year. What did you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced her, so I trust Niele in timeout calling and in coaching, no matter what. I thought just from my experience with her that she was going to call a timeout then, but I mean, it did work out, but that was early on. And then like later on, if I put myself in her shoes, like it's just what you said. What is she going to call a timeout? Like they kept pushing, like it was 12-point lead, and then gets into the 20s, and then it just got worse and worse. So it's like at some point, she probably thought, okay, they have to play through this. But that's tough. Like at that point in the game, I think we talked about this on another pod, like in terms of winning, like what you do when you're, like beating the crap out of a team, like you have to play to get better. And at that point, like you had to play to get better. And that's probably exactly what she was telling them. Like, at that point, when you're playing and you're a player in the game and you guys start to lose by a lot, eventually, naturally, you stop looking at the score.
Yeah. And so to that point, I guess, because Daniel brought up something that I actually thought myself. And so I'm glad he brought it up, because then I can bring it up to you. So as a shooter, when you're in a new environment, and I think in this situation, he means like Anna DeWolf and Emma Risch, like literally in new schools, not necessarily playing in Paris, France, although that is a very new environment for everybody. By the way, South Carolina, how did they get all those people there? No, I was like, wait a second. Why is it like a home game for them? Are they saying Paris, France, and that they're actually playing like in South Carolina? Like, what is
that was
going
crazy.
on here? I could not believe how many people they had.
That was so. Their fans travel very well.
Apparently.
Very well. I remember when we were playing in Greenville, I was hurt then. This is this past year. And they played UConn after us, I think it was. And when they walked in, it was in the middle of our game. When they walked in, the gym erupted. And it was in South Carolina, but like you just saw a red circle and then our green behind our bench. But that just goes to show, like, it was in Greenville, but their fans travel so well. And I mean, you credit Dawn Staley to that. She built that down there. But I saw their fans today, and they were cheering the whole time.
Yeah.
Even when they started winning, they were cheering the whole time. And that's great that they're supporting women's basketball like that. And now Paris got to see all of that. And I know like my sister has played in Europe for the past 4 or 5 years, and they have amazing women's basketball fans in Europe. They love women's basketball. They love women's sports. So the fans that came from the United States got a run for their money, and the European fans and all the people in France also got a run for their money. That was so cool to see. So I like that you touched on that.
Yeah, they definitely showed out, and that was it was quite the scene. So and the question, to get to the question, does it help with confidence to hit dead ball threes? So there was one I think it was Emma that I'm thinking of. They whistled off, shot the three, and hit it. And I thought, actually, that's kind of important. But do you think that matters? Like for you, is it like because I'll tell you, when I played, it was annoying. It would be like I would shoot a shot, they would call a foul, and it would go in. It's like I freaking wasted it. Like I wasted it. That's how I would see it. I wouldn't get any sort of confidence. That's how I viewed it. But you're obviously you're the leading Mabrey 3-point shooter in college basketball. So let's I want your view on that.
Yeah, no, they don't do anything. It doesn't boost your confidence. It actually like pisses you off because you're like, oh wow, that was the one shot I actually made and like it didn't even count. So then it's kind of just like, oh my gosh, they don't give you confidence even if you make it, because at that point it doesn't count. I mean, it might give you confidence, like if you've been hitting some and then you miss a couple and like you're in the game and it's a close game. I mean, that didn't happen for me. It was just kind of like I shot it and whatever. Sometimes I wouldn't even look, like if I knew it wasn't being counted. But no, I mean, that's a good question. That's a very thoughtful question. To think like, hey, I wonder if that made her feel good. But no, it doesn't make you feel good. It pisses you off, and no boost of confidence comes from it, unfortunately. That's just me speaking personally.
It's interesting though, like in the NBA, this happens kind of a lot where a player will shoot it like dead ball, and like KG, like he was very famous for this, like jumping up and blocking it, like goaltending it basically every single time. Like you don't get to see it go through the net. So I don't know. Maybe there is something to that. Maybe there is for me, but I felt the same way as you. Like I don't want to make it when it doesn't count. I need it to count for me to actually get feeling good about this. Coach Humph brings up a good point about having players who can create out of structure, basically just off the dribble, creating for someone else. If it's not Hannah, who's it going to be? Right. And this is why I kind of thought like maybe you can get her off ball a little bit playing with Sony, with Sony being the primary initiator on the offense, because it's just like you want other players to be involved there. But without Liv, it's difficult, right? Like I don't really feel that's like part of Anna's game. Not Hannah, but Anna DeWolf. I don't feel like that's really a big part of her game. So if it's not like I pointed out earlier, like 40% usage for Hannah, like that's kind of a lot, right? Especially juxtaposed with Sony at 22%. Do you feel like that's like a long-term problem that there's something they need to figure out, or are you just okay with it, just like a tough opponent, and just move on with the season?
Not everybody is going to be a good distributor. That's just not realistic. But like I said before, like there's certain passes within our offense is very interchangeable. And I think there's certain things within our offense that we do a lot of that wasn't being executed tonight. So like I think something that needs to be understood is you can be a good passer and excel in an offense without being a distributor. So if there's set plays, so there's tendencies within offense and a lot of schemes. A lot of them will have common action. So like I said, like there's a lot of post entries in our offense. And if you can get the ball where it's needed at that time, like you can still excel and be effective within an offense without being a distributor. So I think, to your question, maybe people need to be more comfortable with their passing, specifically into the post, and being comfortable with making a pass and building that trust between each other. Like, hey, I'm confident you're going to make a good pass, and I'm confident you're going to go get it. I think that could improve, not necessarily in a sense of having more distributors. I think we're just as good with the players that we have. Obviously, having Olivia out there is going to help a lot. Also, in terms of what I'm talking about, because Liv is a great passer and a great distributor. So that's going to help to have her back a lot.
Another question from Blue Eyes Italy 46. Question on Olivia. It's exciting to think about her and Hannah playing together. Do you have Olivia redshirt this year so they can play 2 full years, or are you okay with the partial year?
That sounds like a question that's being asked, like if I was the coach, and to answer that, being completely transparent, it's whatever a player is comfortable with. If I was a coach, I would never emphasize or undermine returning or sitting out. It's whatever Olivia is comfortable with. If she redshirts and doesn't play this year, okay. If she does come back, okay. I don't really like, if I'm putting myself in coach's shoes, I wouldn't even like feel comfortable answering that kind of question. And I know you guys are entitled to ask anything you want, and I love the questions, but I don't think like answering, am I okay with her playing a partial year, or like, because at the end of the day, it's not my decision, it is her decision. And we're going to roll with whatever the player's comfortable with.
Yeah. So part of this is very much like her choice. A.
It is.
And
I mean, the
B,
whole thing is her choice.
And B is like, are you truly comfortable coming back? And that's the major question, right? Because there's a difference, and I think you know this as an athlete too. Like, there's a difference between cleared and ready to play. You know, like it's because I'm cleared. Just because I'm cleared to play doesn't mean that I'm actually ready to play.
Right.
Like Notre Dame,
better yet, like feel like yourself.
Right. Exactly. Like I remember, like this was a big thing with, like I remember Kyle Hamilton in his when he got hurt, and it was like there was a lot of like questions about being cleared and whether he was hurt or whatever. And it's like, look, he hasn't played. It got to a point. See, Jaden Thomas is a perfect example. I don't like to make a bunch of like keep it to basketball on this pod, but it's just like it's an example that I can think of just recently where it's like, hey, like especially with the knee, like look at it, you haven't played in X amount of time. You can't just come out here and like, oh, you're cleared to play, but your body hasn't been going through the prep. It hasn't been going through like all of the weight training, all the conditioning that you need to go to get your body ready to actually go out there and perform at the level that you can. And that's why we've seen so many reoccurrence of injuries, you know, with not just football players, but basketball players as well. So that's what I would say. Like, it's up to Liv in terms of her own confidence, her own, like if she says, you know what, anything this year is too soon, then it's like, okay, that's it, you know, and you move on with your day. If she in December says, you know what, I feel perfect, I feel great, I go out there, every time I go out there, I feel like I'm ready to go and I'm ready to dominate, and let's go. And then you say, okay, let's go, you know. Obviously that's the nature of injuries like this, especially when you're an underclassman, right, where it's like, hey, I have options. I've already used a red shirt
for sure
going on with that. Let's see, someone brought up the example of Jaden Thomas. Another question from Daniel. Love all the questions. We love the questions there. This is really going well. On offense, how do you find the right balance between going hard for an offensive board and getting ready to defend and transition against a team like South Carolina? Is communication the number one priority?
Good question. A balance between going hard for an O board and then getting ready to defend and transition. So when you play basketball, someone always has to get back. There's always going to be a rim protector. That was always me. For any of you that know my rebounding statistics, they are not good because of that manner. That's not my strength. It was my job to get back in transition. And when you play certain teams like who are really good in transition, like South Carolina and maybe someone like Iowa, you might need to send more than one person back. And on the court, the women know, okay, it's my job to get back, or it's my job to go get the rebound. And that part is not really talked about. Like, you're going to say, I got back, but no one that's going for the O board is going to be like, I'm going to go rebound. Like, that's not what happens. Someone is just going to say, I got back. And then where you communicate, really, really important is transition defense communicating. Because if you think about it, you don't know what's going to happen. And you guys are all running back to the same area, and you got to pick somebody up and you got to talk about it. So it's not really the connection between going to get the O board and the transition defense communication. It's mostly just the communication on transition defense. Good question.
Yes, communication is important, not just for your basketball team, but also for your website, Dara, or your podcast, or having a highlight reel that you want to send out to people so you can be recruited. And if you have anything like that, you want to improve your website or your social media page, or you're going to propose to someone, you want to make a popping video, then you're going to want to go to vsrmedia.com, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Fahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Brandon Plankner says Hannah Hidalgo is the real deal, at least.
Very true.
She is the real deal. Very good basketball player. All right. Greg is the underpaid SAG person in the country. That's not, I wouldn't say I'm underpaid anything. I'm just, you just got to bring some fire to these things. All right, Dara, as we wrap up here, obviously a tough game for the ladies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not what anyone wanted to see. It's not what they wanted to see. It's not what the coaches wanted to see. But what do you take away from this in a positive way? I think there's a lot to learn from a game like this, right? I think South Carolina was healthier, A, and B, a little bit further along than Notre Dame is at this stage. But what do you take away from this on the positive side for the ladies?
Now, like, you got a taste of it. You got a taste of what it's like to play one of the best teams in November. So imagine what that's like in playing them in March. I think they learned a lot. I think they need to know how to get back on transition defense. I'm pretty confident that's something that Neil talked about with them at halftime, if I had to guess, which is something that we struggled with last year too. I don't know the exact stat, but our transition scoring defense was not good. So I think that's something again this year that we're going to need to work on, being more confident. I think our leaders, we're going to see them step up more once they have that one game underneath their belt, even though it wasn't what they wanted, but they're probably going to watch the film and say, damn, I should have shot that. And that's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling, but it does resonate with you a lot. So I think, stronger transition defense and then some more contributions from other people and leadership is definitely what they learned tonight. And then and I think it's NJIT next on the road. That's a good game to redeem themselves, get back under their feet, and just get back to Notre Dame women's basketball.
Yeah. Everything's in front of them, and you get healthy, you get more reps together, and you get kind of a feel for each other. Like so many players, Anna DeWolf, Hannah Hidalgo, right? You're practicing together, but until you get in an actual game, it's hard to really build that chemistry. You get into a game against a quality opponent like this, and like you said, now now you know what it is. Now you know what the speed is. Now you know what the intensity level is. You're not going to get that against Purdue Northwest, right? You're just not. And so this is a good example for them. It's a good learning experience as they head forward. Stubborn Mick says it's incredible to have access to Dara Mabrey. Completely unexpected. I agree. It is incredible. It's incredible for me.
It was completely unexpected.
It was completely unexpected. Sometimes that you got to shoot your shot sometimes. And so that's what I did. And it was a bucket. So there's a lot of fun things coming to this podcast early or later on that we know about, that we will share with everyone later. So you're going to want to stay tuned in, subscribe to this show, subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, hit subscribe, the notification bell, so you know when we go live or whenever we post a new podcast. We'll be back, I think, probably next week, talking about the ladies and how things have gone, and we've got some fun guests lined up. Like I said, we've got things that we know about that we are not ready to share, but it's going to be awesome. I am tickled at what's coming, so I'm very excited. Notre Dame loses 100-71 in the season opener. We'll talk to you everyone again soon. Thanks for tuning in, and have a good rest of the week, everybody. Jamie and I will be back tomorrow, Hit and Hustle, on probably a mailbag show. Be good, everyone.